And welcome back, everybody, to another one in my in-depth model builds. And this is episode, I think I'm on episode 15 of this, the ICM 148 scale Hampden Mark 1. Now, if you did watch episode 13, you would have seen it kind of ended a bit abruptly. As I mentioned in that episode, I'd gone out of town for work. I just recently came back, was working through the footage, and realized I had more than enough to do a single episode. And so I decided to just cut that episode where I am. We'll come back here in 14, and we'll get to see the next couple of steps. So pretty much as I said in episode 13, I'm pretty sure the next couple of things I'm going to do is preparing for camo. So things like I got to get the tails glued on, I got to get the wingtip lights figured out, the landing lights in place, and just do the last little bit of prep work to start laying camo down. So I think this episode will be camo prep, and next episode will probably be the painting process. So without further ado, let's get into this. And as always, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. Okay, as I had stated in the intro, we are going to continue plugging along, working towards getting this ready for camo. All of the little things are done. We're just kind of, I should say that, all of the big things are done. We're just kind of poking away at the little things I need to get done before I can paint. Things like, I said, landing light, wingtip lights, the tails, all that kind of stuff still needs to be installed, masked, yada, yada, yada. So I'm currently digging through the box, hence all the noise in the background, trying to find the clear parts for the wingtip lights. I believe I have found it. So we're gonna go ahead and get these started to install. Normally I do this all in one shot. I glue all 4 lights on, or all 2 lights, or however many there are, all in one shot. This time I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach. I'm going to glue each light on individually, let it dry, and then move on to the next one. So okay, so this is this wing. So F3 and F15 go on the left wing. So I'll start with the front one. Actually, no, let's start with the back one because I already have it open. So what I'm gonna do is trim the clear piece off of the sprue, which is F15. Do my best to not lose it. Clean up that sprue gate again as best as I can, because it's right on the edge of a tiny little clear piece, and this is probably going to go flying as I try to do this. I'm not going to try to trim it with a knife because A, it's really small, and that's going to put a ton of pressure on the piece, and it's just asking for it to go bouncing across my room. And B, I'm probably going to end up cutting myself. And I'm sure none of you out there, well, I shouldn't say none, there's probably a small part of you that are just wishing that I cut my finger on camera. But anyways, I'm going to use the sanding stick just like that, clean it up. Now that should theoretically, fit in there quite nicely. Now, what I'm going to do, if you've seen me glue clear pieces on before, you've seen me do this a bunch. I'm just going to use Elmer's white glue. It has a decent enough stick that when you glue something on with it, a clear piece, it does hold. It doesn't just fall off. It doesn't stay brittle. It has enough stickiness to actually hold clear pieces in place when it dries. 2, it dries clear. So I can just load up this whole area with this white glue, way more than I ever would with any other type of glue. Jam the clear wingtip light in there, which you probably can't see what I'm doing because I'm completely out of frame, but it's really hard to do this in frame. I am literally just soaking this entire area down with a giant gooey mess of white glue. And then when that almost went on the canopies. when I stick this on, A, it will grab and hold and bite because there's lots of glue. And B, any type of gap between the light and the wing will fill with this white glue and act like a filler, like a putty. And you've seen me use white glue, if you've watched all the videos elsewhere on this, as a slight filler for specifically those reasons, that it's strong, but it's also slightly flexible and it dries clear. So there's no residue or anything left on the airframe when you're done. So I'm just going to, I think that's about it. I'm gonna let that dry. I'll put the front one on while I'm here, F3. Then we're gonna let that side dry. We're gonna come back, see how it all looks. Make sure I didn't screw anything up or make a mistake by using white glue. And as long as everything seems to look okay, we'll go ahead and do the other side. So let's get this side cleaned up. Same thing I just did. It is not easy to hold these pieces. Okay, and then we'll soak down the like that. Glue the light in place, which I'm doing wrong. I'm just licking my finger slightly to get a bit of moisture on it to wipe away excess white glue, because it is a water-based glue and it just wipes off nice and clean. And then I'll just make sure that is in there, squared up, all that fun stuff exactly the way I want it. Whoa, whoa. There, I think that's pretty good. And yeah, we'll just let that dry. And then we'll come back and see. I might need to do a little bit of sanding to clean up some edges. And then, like I said, as long as that looks decent, I will do the other side. And my guess is if this looks good, I'm just gonna get the other side done off camera. And when we come back, they'll both be done. And then I'll have to paint these, which is also nice because I won't have to like be very careful with my painting. I can be a little messy with the painting, mask it, and then when I do the camouflage, it'll be perfect because I'm usually painting these after I've painted the camo because I don't normally have masks. So yeah, okay, let's let that dry. We'll come back in a little bit and we'll see how it looks. Okay, so we're back, excuse me, and the lights have been glued in. Now I did do a quick check with the sanding stick to see how well it would clean up, and pretty much immediately, excuse me, popped the light right out of the wing. So I went ahead and I hit it with the tiniest little amount of Tamiya Extra Thin, and I think that's enough that it has, I mean, you just saw, I sanded it and it has not popped. So it should be pretty solidly mounted in the wing. There's just the slightest mismatch with the light sticks out just slightly farther than the wing. So I'm just kind of using this to just clean that up a little bit and blend it as much as possible. This will not be left clear. This will be painted, which is the next step basically. I'm just waiting on the Dash 8. I glued the wingtip lights on that. So I'm going to paint the nav lights on this, the green and red, at the same time I paint the green and red on that Dash 8. So I'm just waiting for those to dry up before I do the painting. So meanwhile, I will quickly get the landing light installed. I'll get it trimmed up here. I already taken off the sprue. Get the seams cleaned up quickly, and we can get this glued on and drying. And we're getting very, very close to paint. I haven't even test fit this yet, so I have no idea. These landing lights can be a real sore point with kits. It's usually either they fit perfectly or they fit atrociously. like that Dash 8 kit I just did, were just absolute trash. I could not, they were unbelievably small because it's a Dash 8 and 1/144 scale. And B, I couldn't find a way that they cleanly like fit into their spot. No matter what I did, they didn't want to fit properly. No matter how I oriented them, they just did not want to sit properly. So, and I don't know. Oh wow, I'm starting to lose the starting to lose some grit off this sanding stick. Anyways, I couldn't figure out how it properly fit. No matter what I did, they always sat funny. So I just did the best I could and moved on. And I think I have that backwards. No, I will not remember. There's a big side and a small side, it looks like. Does it go that way? Yes, it goes that way. And that is a beautiful fit. There's the tiniest amount of sanding I still need to do. Okay, so I'm seeing the same problem on this landing light that I've seen with the other clear pieces around the nose, where it has like a little lip, a notched lip that everything sits on, and that sprue is actually sitting right on in the lip. So it doesn't want to seat properly. And these are an absolute pain. No, I take that back. There is no lip on the bottom. There's only a lip on the side. So I think I just have to sand. I just have to sand this sprue back at the right angle. There seems to be a little bit of a rake to it. It's not perfectly square this way. The two sides, if you're looking on the profile, they're not level this way. This is angled this way, and this is angled this way. And I think I just have to sand that sprue gate down to the right angle, and it should. Still doesn't want to fit. Do I have it the wrong way again? No, that is definitely the right way. Actually, with just a good solid amount of pressure, yeah, that does fit. Okay, so it's just a matter of once you clean up the edges properly, it takes just a tiny amount of pressure to get it to seat in there properly. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the edges with some extra thin. I want that. You immediately watch it capillary around the way you want it to, so that's good. Perfect on that side too. Perfect on that side too. So I'm just going to find something, probably the end of this. No, it's not going to work. I hate using my fingertip for this. I just want to give it a bit of a squeeze, push it in there, make sure that that glue does capillary everywhere, but I also want to try to limit the chances of me touching the edge. If I touch that edge, it is just going to run along my finger, and it is going to ruin that clear glass. So, oh, I almost broke that machine gun off. I think that's it. So that's going to sit and dry. And that Dash 8 should be done. So I think the next time we come back to this, we'll be painting these and maybe gluing some tails on, because everything's right here and everything goes together so unbelievably nicely. I think these weren't sided. I think I did this before and they just fit. Oh, like they're just sitting there. You can't even see the seam. I can't get over this. The seam just disappears and it's just sitting there. The engineering is just... Okay, so yeah, let's let this dry. I'll come back in a little bit. We'll get these wingtips painted, and then we'll mask off all the lights. And then we'll deal with the tails, mask off. We're getting there. So as I said, I think this entire video will just be this prep work, all the little things I need to do to be ready for paint, but it's not taking me very long. So let's let that dry. As I said, we'll come back, we'll start painting some wingtip lights. Okay, so here we are to paint the nav lights. And if you haven't seen any of my other videos where I do this, I'm just using Tamiya clear. There's a couple of different manufacturers that make clear paint. I think Vallejo makes a clear as well, but I've been using the Tamiya clear for many, many years. And I know how it reacts and I like it. It's got a nice deep color saturation when you put it on right. So that's what I'm going to use. So the red goes on the left, the green goes on the right. I hope I have that right because that's how pretty much all of my other models are built. So left wing is going to get the red. So I'm literally just going to paint it directly onto the clear part. I'm not going to worry too much about keeping it within the lines because it will be masked off. Actually, I want to paint the entire clear part, including the area that will not be clear red, because as I said, it's going to be masked off and I don't want any areas not covered by paint. So I'm going to cover the entirety. Basically, I'm over painting. Not something I would normally do, but I also don't normally paint these before I do the final painting. So doing it a little differently. Now I've mentioned before, I'm not entirely sure if these had clear lenses with colored bulbs or clear bulbs with colored lenses. I'm doing it this way because it's easiest and it fits with the rest of my models that all have the lights painted this way. So it kind of looks consistent across everything. That's basically it. So I'm just going to go along, make sure the edges are painted and that it's got good solid coverage. Oh, I just touched it. Great. So the nice thing with the clear is you can see if you're getting good coverage and you can see if it's starting to leave brush marks or something like that and you need to clean it up a little bit. So I'm just going through making sure it all has, it also dries really fast, kind of like a, yeah, that looks good. I like that. Okay, it's gonna sit and dry for just a minute. It does not take long to dry, as I mentioned. It starts to thicken up as you're applying it, which is makes it a little easier to apply. But I'm also doing the dash 8. So I'm gonna get the dash 8 painted and we'll come back and we'll do the green. And just like that, we're back for the green. It's literally only been a few minutes. Dash 8's been painted. Now it's time to put the green on here. So same thing. And I'm gonna go really wide with the painting. Make sure there's no gaps. Again, I'm not sure if this rear one is even a colored bulb or if it was a white light, but I have not done that much research and I am doing what I like to do, which is just painting these the solid color, as I mentioned. Sometimes artistic license and cool factor trump historical accuracy, just in my personal opinion. And again, it's a model. It's not a piece of historical evidence or anything. I build it the way I like to build it. And I'm building it for me. I mean, for you, it's a YouTube channel, but I'm building it for me. I'm building what I want to see on the shelf, and I want to see clear green lenses on both sides. The green is already starting to solidify up here on the wing. Kind of turn. The best way to describe it is like a candy apple. It starts to like harden up the way like a toffee would or something. It you know, kind of syrupy. It starts to dry and you can start to kind of move it around a bit, and then you make sure you have, when you look through it, that the color is consistent, which means you don't have any thick or thin spaces. And again, I am pretty happy with that right there. So I'm gonna let that dry. That's actually gonna sit and dry for a very long time. At least probably, I might not even get back to this tonight. I mean, I'm not masking it for at least 24 hours. Let's just put that right out there. That's not gonna be masked for a solid 24 hours. It's going to sit and dry, harden up, and I'll come back later and mask it. There's the brush cover. So yes, that is that. Let's let it sit, take a break. We'll come back, and I'm either going to do masking on the cowlings or the tails. I don't know yet. We'll see how I feel when I come back down. Well, we're back. It has been 2, maybe 3 hours since I painted those wingtip lights, but I'm not doing anything with those right now. I do want them to sit for a little while longer. What I am going to do is I'm going to mask off that landing light, and then we'll start masking off the firewall. Make sure I have this in the right orientation. And that right there is what is listed as being for the landing light. I also still need to mask off both the rear canopy as well as the forward canopy, the gunner's compartment canopy and the cockpit canopy. Both of those are going to, ooh, I gotta make sure I get this right. It does seem to be, I mean, I shouldn't be surprised. It's specifically designed to fit this. So it does have a slight taper to it and a proper curve to wrap around. That was probably one of the easiest masks I have applied in a long time. I'm not gonna worry too much about getting the frame correct on this. Although if I do paint anything else aluminum before I paint this, I will hit that with a bit of aluminum, but I'm not terribly worried. As I said, I do have the masks for the wingtips, and as I said, I need to build up this canopy, mask that, paint both of those interior green, which now that I just said that, I realize I'm just gonna do that interior green. Whenever I paint that part and that part, I'll just hit that with some interior green before I start the camouflage. So next up, we're gonna get some masking tape, and we're gonna start masking the my mind, I just completely lost what I'm trying to say. Firewall. So I'm gonna do it in sections. I don't wanna put a huge amount of tape on here and then run into a situation where I need to cut across multiple pieces of tape. So I'm gonna do a couple of different pieces at a time and just keep building it up bit by bit by bit. I have 2 in my hand, so I'm just gonna put them in 2 different places. I also put a brand new fresh blade on here. The old one I had was starting to show its age. The tip was broken off and the blade itself was getting a bit dull. You can sharpen them, I have before. For day-to-day work, I have no issue sharpening it, but for this kind of stuff, it's better to go with just a fresh blade. And I'm literally just gonna let the blade, with very little pressure, follow along that panel line that's already there. And yeah, it'll do all the work itself. So I'm gonna go ahead and work my way around this. Again, nothing I need to sit here and do, you know, entirely on camera. Okay, and as promised, we are back. Engine cowlings, or firewalls, engine firewalls have been masked. We're gonna go ahead and mask off these wingtip lights. Let's make sure I do these right. 3 and 4. I believe 3 and 4 were the front. Yeah. So the orange, the masks that are in these 2 corners are for the front, and the masks, ooh, they're not color coded. I believe those ones are those ones. They're not actually color coded the instructions, but the 4 that are here are the back lights. The 4 that are up here are the front lights. So we're just gonna go ahead and mask these off. Pretty simple. I mean, it's just a top and a bottom half, but hopefully they overlap properly. So far, there's been no issues with these Edward masks, so I'm hoping it should be fine. Yeah, I don't see any problem with this. Nice and easy. As long as you get the orientation right, there is absolutely no issues getting these installed. Yeah. Makes life significantly easier considering what I used to do. So I did get in the habit of buying a whole bunch of masks when I was younger, and then I got in the habit of masking by hand. I think I'm going to go back down the route of buying masks for as many models as I can, because this is just so much easier. I mean, there's a something to be said for when you do it by yourself, and there's that satisfaction of looking at a model that you've masked off, and you pull those maskings and you see how nice it looks. But then there's also the satisfaction of pulling off the masks that you didn't have to waste tons of time making and realize you made a mistake. You know, there's no error. Oh, the light just came off. That's not good. Okay, I'm gonna have to touch that with the tiniest amount of liquid glue and hope that it doesn't run underneath that mask, because that will not end very well. Yeah, that bit already. That was just what it needed. Okay, well, again, I used white glue on that, and I think that was probably a mistake. So, lesson learned. Anyways, as I was saying, there's something to be said, like I said, when you do all that effort yourself and you pull the masks and it looks really, really nice. But then there's something to be said for when you do your own masks and you pull it off and there's a glaring, error where you miscut one of your masks, and now there's absolutely no way for you to go back and fix that. Whereas by buying these pre-cut masks, you usually take out the chance of a miscut because they are professionally cut. So yeah, I might have to go back down this road. I mean, I definitely have a set of masks now for the Anson, which I'll be doing soon-ish, probably in a couple of months. I'll get around to doing that one. But I might have to say, like I said, look at getting more. I have to go through. I have a whole bunch of them. Like I said, I bought a bunch years ago, and I don't even remember which ones I have. I'm going to actually get very mad, to be honest, if I go through my thing and I find a set of masks for the B24, because... Wait, didn't I have? Yes, I did. I did have a set for the B24, and I used a set for the B24. Didn't I? I think I'm losing my mind. I honestly don't remember now. Did I do the B24 by hand, or did I have a set of masks? Well, I need to go to bed. It is pretty late at night. I spent that entire week out in Halifax working on Atlantic time, and I haven't really readjusted it to Eastern time since I got back, so I've been waking up super early. And then it was a long day with my twins' birthday party. And now I had a day at work, so I am a little tired. And it's late at night, so I think I'm just going to finish this off just like that. So that's that. So now when I go ahead and paint all the camo, all of that will blend together nicely. I also just noticed there is, I think I did this before, the slightest lip on that wingtip. That side looks good, and now this side. about that. Okay. Sanded that lip off, leading edge is looking good, everything is looking good. So I've made myself a list, a quick list on Milanote, the online project website that I use. I'll if I haven't, there's a link to there's a post on my Facebook about that. If you go to the Sean's Aviation Facebook page, search for Milanote, you'll see my post about it. It's a pretty cool online project managing software. You can multi-groups, all that fun stuff. But I use it to track on my models on all the plans. Specifically, I use it to keep a track of the lists of what I need to do and what order I need to do it in so I don't lose track. And I did make a list for this, so I know for a fact that I now still have to do the masking of these two canopies. I need to paint the green frames on those two canopies and also the green frame on the landing light at the same time. And I have to glue the tails on before I do any more painting. So those are a few things. So as I said, it is late at night, so let's take off. No pun intended with the airplanes. We'll come back and I'm either gonna glue tails or start working on the canopy. So we'll come back tomorrow and we'll see where I get. Okay, back at the desk, and we are going to start working on some more of the canopies. Now, I need that one, which is also the last part of that sprue, so all that can go in the garbage. And I'm going to need, oh wow, that's pretty much all of that too. So the one little sort of bomb aimer section that I didn't use, I'm just gonna throw into the spares bin. Not sure what I'll use that for, but I also don't need anything else on that sprue once I am done with that. So I'll push it away and throw all that rest in the garbage. On sprue D, I do need this, D20. This is the little form you use to mold the cockpit canopy. It gives you the proper shape. So I'll start with that canopy since it does need to sit and dry for a bit. And that is empty. I always like to double check before I throw something in the garbage. Trust me, I have made that mistake a few times where I've cleared out sprues and thrown empty sprues in the garbage, and then as you're working away, you realize, oh crap, there's something tiny that I needed that was on that sprue that is now in the garbage, and the garbage has been taken out, so it's gone. So always take your time. Be 100% sure before you throw something out. You start to gather that the biggest thing you need to have when you build models, it isn't historical knowledge, it isn't skill, it isn't anything, it's patience. I'm not going to worry too much about cleaning this up. It's literally just a mold. But I want to make sure it's going to sit flat so that the canopy, when I glue it together, is the right shape. Absolutely nothing special about cleaning this up. It's exactly the same as anything else. Just taking my time, especially with clear styrene, which I've said before, it's very brittle and it tends to shatter. So you gotta be very gentle with it and make sure you are not putting too much pressure. Just gentle movements. And eventually you'll clean it up. There's the tiniest. I don't want to scratch the clear piece, but there's the tiniest little bump on the outside of this, which is a bit of a pain to clean up. Okay, this side should be easy. It's just a tiny little nub, and I just got to make sure I keep the angle. I don't want to oversand or undersand this angle and destroy it, because then it won't fit together nice. So again, just a couple of small strokes at a time. Make sure you're checking the angle. Okay. So that's that. I'm just going to double check my instructions. Because knowing my luck, I'll glue this together wrong. Okay. So there's a little tiny notch, and that's the top. And then this, the little window goes forward. So on the small piece, the little tiny window lines up on the same side that has the notch. So that's how you can make sure you have it oriented right. So what I'm going to do is, with just the tiniest amount of Tamiya white, I'm going to put it on that front edge. I'm not going to put any glue on the back edge, just on the front edge, and only the tiniest amount. And then I'll place it in that. Well, I guess what I'll do first is I'll touch these together so they start to dry and tack together like that. And then I'll place it in that mold, let that harden, and then I'll come back later with a little bit of Tamiya extra thin and get that seam properly hardened and glued in a way that it's not going to glue itself to this mold. This is actually really finicky. So just be aware, this is not an easy process. I probably should have taped, which I might still do. I don't have any open tape. I also don't want that Tamiya white to cook off while I'm doing this. That would not end well, but I'm gonna have just the slightest amount of tape, and I'm gonna tape should have been something I did first. There. It doesn't want to work. Okay, you know what? That's there. Now I'm going to do something that is very dangerous. I am going to actually touch that front corner with the tiniest little bit of Tamiya extra thin, and that's it. I'm not touching anything anymore. This really is not fun. I appreciate what they did. Creating that mold to get that shape properly is a huge, I want to say it's a huge benefit, but execution of it is an absolute pain in the rear end. Just simply because there's no way for the canopies to properly sit on their own. They just want to flop over. To get it to sit there while it dries, not gluing itself to the mold, is a little difficult. So I should have probably prepped a bit better in the beginning. Maybe taped it all together first and then hit it with that little bit of Tamiya extra thin. That might have helped, but yeah, I didn't. I just went for it. So I'm gonna mask that off now while that is drying, because I still have to go around and clean that up. That looks like it's perfectly symmetrical, so that shouldn't really make much of a difference, but okay, cutting pliers can go away. I'll get this out. So what am I using now? I am using, if I put this way, yes, okay. So I'm gonna start with this guy here. And I'm just gonna pick a side and I'm gonna start applying it. And it should, if I have done this correctly, this shouldn't matter. But it does. Okay, so these are not perfectly symmetrical. There are the slightest differences in them. So you need to just make sure, which makes me think I'm doing this the wrong way. Oh, it just stuck down. Okay, so I'm gonna flip this. This should go here. That did not go down anywhere near as well as I wanted it to. I think that's better. Okay, and then the pink goes behind it. Okay, and then red is this one. Okay, almost there. I think I'm just gonna finish this offline and we'll come back. That should be done and I should be ready to go on this one. So let's just do this all offline. There's no point you sitting here watching me do all of this over and over again in effectively complete silence. So be back in a sec. Okay, so here we are. Both of these have now been masked. The canopy, this is the cockpit canopy, and this is the rear gunner's compartment. I'm just gonna use some cheap painter's tape to mask off the insides so that we can go and paint. There's no point using expensive Tamiya tape or anything when this stuff is like $1 or $2 a roll and it covers crazy amounts of plastic. So I'm just gonna tear it into little strips like I'm doing and just stick it on the inside Make sure there's overlap in the middle so there's no exposed paint on the inside. And then just be careful, because there's a glue joint, you don't want to pop the glue joint, although I think the glue joint's on this side. But anyways, you don't want to pop that glue joint by pressing too hard, so just gentle. That'll also make sure you get your paint along all the outside edges, as this canopy will be kind of exposed as it's sitting open on the airframe. There's one. No, that's good. Just want to make sure that the tape's a little tight here. I want to make sure it isn't back behind the plastic, but it's tight enough that I shouldn't have any issues. But yeah, so you're going to make sure all that's in there tight. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing. I think I took too much tape to the little tiny gunner's compartment. No, you know what? That's good. I took just enough. Oop. So yeah, I'm just going to, like I said, get in here, make sure all of the interior part of that canopy is completely covered with tape. Just like that. Doesn't have to look pretty, it just has to serve a purpose. So I'm also going to trim some of this excess away, just because it makes it a little hard to manage when you're over painting. So just gonna trim. You can see already just how unwieldy this is just to trim the tape. So trying to paint with this sometimes can be a pain. So yeah, and then the back here, just trim this back like that, back there. This side I'll just, there you go. Like I said, doesn't have to look pretty, it just has to serve a purpose. And the good news is this tape is rigid enough that you can clip to the tape and it'll actually support itself. So you don't have to worry about clipping to the actual plastic and then having to move the clip around as you're painting. You can, because it's curved, it gives it a bit of strength. So it's really easy just to clip to that and it's self-supporting. I'm just gonna trim a little bit of this because I don't like that little extra that's sticking off on both sides there. Good enough for me. So let's go find the paint color I need and we'll go get these painted. That's it right there. Let's go paint the canopy frames on this. I also have to remember to do the landing light on the main airframe. So let's go get that done now before I actually forget what I need to do. Okay, once again, back. And I have painted what needed to be painted, that interior green. So I got the area around that landing light done, as well as both canopies. This is the forward canopy, and then this is the rear gunner's canopy. So we are very, very close to the beginning of camouflage. Now, the next thing I need to focus on are tails. All of those need to be glued on before I can start painting, mostly just because I need to clean up any seams that may appear while they're being installed. So I'm gonna go to the instructions and make sure I follow properly. I don't think it really matters what order everything gets painted or installed in, as long as everything gets installed. So things like these rudders and then these go in. I'll glue everything together at the same time. And everything should pop in nice and tight. Now I'm not going to end up doing, I think I'll do the tops first and I'll do the bottoms later. So I'm not going to worry about posing the rudders at all. Although, no, because the tail wheel has to be mounted straight. I can't cause the tail wheel to be turned unless I modify it. And if the tail wheel is straight, then the rudders need to be straight. So I am going to do it straight. The angle side to side, I'm not terribly worried about. That will sort itself out once I install it. I'm going to put just the tiniest amount of glue but I want it down inside because there's the tab that fits up into the pocket. So it should cause everything to sit pretty much exactly where I want it to. So I'm gonna get that in place. The rudder up against that. I'll get a bit of liquid glue in there. And that should hold everything together exactly how I want. I'm gonna move that up there. I have a feeling I'm gonna knock it over. Get some light on this. All right, so a little bit along the bottom, and I'm gonna put some down in the hinge and along the leading edge where it's gonna line up. And now I should be able to just make sure everything is lined up and square, and it should pretty much just go together exactly the way I want it to. I am pretty happy with that. I'm gonna put a little bit more down the inside here. Unfortunately, my little stand is being used on another model right now, so I don't really have anything to help hold this in place. I think that's about it. It's just a little off center. There. Okay, get the other side in, and then I'll let it sit. So exactly the same process. I'm actually gonna put a little bit of glue on the bottom of that just to make sure it does line up, and there we go. So same thing as before. A little bit too much on that. I want it down inside the pocket. I'm gonna put a little bit up in here as well. Now that I know how the bonding points all line up, I want to try to get as much of this to bond and stick the first time around as possible. So I'm gonna slide that in. That should fit, and then that should all line up pretty nicely. That's pretty good. Hit it with a bit of liquid glue. I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'll come back and install the bottom ones. So when I come across this bottom, the extra thin, up inside the leading edge where the rudder touches. Oh, I almost broke the machine gun off the bottom. I am so breaking this thing off before I'm done. Okay. One last check. Not spilling the glue. Want to make sure that the tails are as vertical as possible and that the rudders are centered, that they're not off to one side or the other, and are perfectly straight and perfectly fit into those horizontal or the vertical tails, and that the vertical tail is as square as possible. And I think that's the ticket. Okay, I'm just gonna let that sit for a little bit, We'll come back in a bit and we'll glue on all these bottom ones. And I've said it before, but I'm getting very, very close to paint. So now that these top tails have dried and they are really nice, tiny little bit of seam on that side, but honestly, considering it's going to be pretty much the break in the camo, I'm not going to worry too much about it. To be perfectly honest, I am going to live with the flaw. So I put the rest of the tails in here because I was working on one of the other models and I didn't want to, whoops, lose any of these. So I'll pull all of this stuff out, put this back. Now we glue the lower ones on, and just to make sure I have it right, yeah, the forward side goes in, and then the rudders go in. So these, and I do believe these are sided. One of these fits better on one side than it does on the other, and I can't remember which side is which. Actually, be honest, they both fit about the same. Yeah, I'm not really going to worry. It's going to need a bit of filling. I'm probably just going to use a little bit of Mr. Surfacer. I've kind of been saying that for the whole kit, and I've yet to use it. I do think this section around the tail, yes. Sorry about that. As I was saying, I'm probably going to glue this in for now, and then I'll come back with a bit of Mr. Surfacer to clean these tails up. I'm probably going to hit it with a little bit of paint just to see what it looks like. Yeah, see, it's... Where did that go? That little forward piece needs to, like, tuck down into that little pocket, and it presses in, and I'm afraid of breaking the upper one off. There we go. I was afraid of snapping the upper tails off by pushing too hard on the lower tails. So as I was saying, I think what I'll do is at some point when I'm painting something, I'll come through and I will hit this with a bit of paint just to see how these seams look. And if they are passable, I'm not going to bother. As I said, they are, you know, they are a camo pattern, like a break in the camo where the tails are black and the horizontal stab is camo. At least on the top. On the bottom, it's all black. But either way, I think, you know, the fact that that camo break happens is enough that it should hide any of the crimes. And if I have to come back with a touch of Mr. Surfacer, I will. I can see why these instructions asked you to install these tails first. However, I was more worried of breaking the tails off as I was trying to clean up the seams around the horizontal stab than I am about breaking the stab off. So yeah, I went away from instructions. A little bit of a seam on this inside. Not sure why. Probably 100% user error, but there. That tucked in nice and well. Now I'm going to glue on the little lower rudder extensions. Actually, what I'll do is I'll put the glue. So these also are designed to lock into the upper tails. There's a keyed shaft. So the shaft that was on the upper elevators is keyed, has a flat spot. So this does key over. So just make sure you're doing that right. I don't know if I have them in the right orientation or not. They are handed. So you can't put this rudder on this side because the key is different. That being said, I don't think it actually makes a difference at the end of the day which one goes where. As long as you match the upper and lower halves to their mate, it should go together without any issue. So, little mass balance weight there on the bottom, which is kind of neat. There we go. Everything looks nice and straight. No, it doesn't. There. Now everything looks nice and straight. I'll do the same thing on the other side. And then this is going to sit for a while. And like I said, I think I'll have to take a look at the instructions. I think the next step I need to do is going to be checking seams on these tails and getting prepared for, oh, that one went right in. No issues at all. So same thing, I'm going to hit it with some Tamiya extra thin along the bottom, just so that rudder locks into place. Make sure everything is square and straight, looking good. That rudder isn't quite straight, but it's been fixed. There, I think that is good. Tails are in place. I'm happy with that. Like I said, I just need to do a little bit of seam work back there. I'm going to paint probably elevator. So I can't, no, because the elevator's gonna be drooped, so I want to paint that. I want to paint that after. So I'll paint the camo on that separate, glue it in after. Flaps and ailerons, I don't know. I might paint them separate just to make sure that that seam line, the color continues up. So I'll paint them separate and glue them on after. Yeah, I'm pretty close to paint. So you know what? I'm gonna let that sit for a bit. I do believe my supper is ready. So I'm gonna go up, check, make sure it's finished, eat some supper, and then we'll come back after and see where we are. And there we are. Those tails have now dried. Everything looks perfect. They are really square. I'm very happy with that. Seam lines aren't too bad. There's a little bit on the inside on this side, and that's pretty much it for the entire tail section. So again, once I get a little bit of paint on back there, I'll have a better feel for what it's going to look like. Being the break between two camo colors, I don't know whether I'll do anything with it. Yeah. Although the color, I don't know, it might actually not be a break. I'd have to look at the instructions again for my scheme and see whether my tails are black or not. I have to get the decals and do a bit more research. So anyways, regardless of that, I am going to wrap up this video at this point. There's only a few minor things left for me to do prior to paint. I believe there's some intakes along here I need to do. And maybe just a few other little things. I have to go through the instructions step by step, make sure everything that I need on here for paint. I do know there's a little piece on the elevator I need to glue on before I can paint. Just little things like that. But I'll need to go through the instructions step by step, make sure I haven't missed anything. And then I'll be able to start the paint. And I'm probably going to start with the brown, then the green, and then proper masking, and then I'll do the lower black. But I'm not going to do anything else until that next video. So come back, we'll see episode 16. Should start seeing some paint coming down in the next episode. So thank you all for watching. We'll see you all next time.